My son didn't just stop talking to me. He disappeared from my life, while I was still sitting there thinking everything was fine. And the worst part? I helped him do it. I don't even know how to start this without it sounding wrong. Or like I'm trying to make excuses. I'm not. I'm really not. If anything, I think I've been harder on myself than anyone else ever could be. But people think they know why he cut me off. They think I was too controlling. Too focused on work. Not present enough when he was growing up. And look, yeah, that's not completely untrue. I worked a lot. I know I did. I can admit that. But that's not why he stopped speaking to me. There's something else. Something I haven't said out loud like this before. Not fully. Not all the way through. And even now, saying it, I can feel it in my stomach. Like that drop. You know? Like when you realize something too late. Okay. Sorry. I keep moving around. I don't know how to sit still with this. It's been in my head for so long, but saying it out loud feels different. Heavier. His name is Derek. He's 31 now. Which, I mean, logically I know that. But when I picture him, I don't see 31. I see him at 9. Sitting at the kitchen table. Homework spread out. And he had this habit. This weird little thing. He'd press his whole left hand flat on the paper like it was going to blow away or something. I don't even know why that stuck with me. But it did. And I loved it. I loved him. I still do. That's kind of the problem, I think. Because I don't just miss him. I miss who I thought he was. Okay. From the beginning. I should probably do this in order, or I'm going to lose myself in it. I got divorced when Derek was 14. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, nothing like that. Just this slow, quiet kind of unhappiness that builds over years. The kind where eventually you stop fighting, not because things are better, but because you don't care enough to fight anymore. And when it ended, Derek stayed with me. His dad moved to Phoenix. Just packed up and left. And Derek stayed with me in Ohio in the house. And for a while it was actually okay. Better than okay, even. It was just the two of us. We'd order pizza on Fridays, watch whatever he wanted. Usually something I didn't understand. And I remember thinking, okay, we're going to be all right. And we were. For a while. But I was working. A lot. More than I should have been, if I'm being honest now. I ran a small accounting firm, just me and 2 other people, and the divorce, it took a lot out of me. Financially, emotionally, everything. So I threw myself into work. Early mornings, late nights. And Derek, he was a teenager. He had friends, his own life. I told myself he didn't need me hovering. I told myself giving him space was good parenting. I don't know if I actually believed that. Or if it was just easier. Because here's the thing. We were still close. That's what makes this harder to explain. He wasn't one of those kids who shut down or pulled away. He'd come into the kitchen while I was making coffee, just start talking. About random things. About school. About whatever he was interested in that week. There was this phase, God, I forgot about this until just now, he was obsessed with architecture. Like, completely into it. He'd show me pictures of buildings, explain design concepts like I had any idea what he was talking about. And I'd listen. I actually listened. Because he was interesting. He really was. His brain just worked in ways that surprised me. So when things started to shift, when something started to go wrong, I didn't see it. How do you see something breaking, when everything still looks normal on the surface? And that's the part that keeps me up at night. Because looking back now, I think the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. And what happened after that, it didn't fall apart all at once. It unraveled slowly, quietly, and by the time I realized what was actually happening, it was already too late to stop it. So, things didn't just suddenly fall apart. That would almost be easier to understand, wouldn't it? If there was one big moment, one obvious break, something you could point to and say that's when everything changed. But it wasn't like that. It was gradual, subtle, the kind of shift you only recognize when you look back and realize you've been standing in a different place for a long time. Derek went to college in-state. We couldn't afford anything else after the divorce, not comfortably anyway. And he didn't complain. Not once. Which I appreciated at the time. I remember thinking, he's grounded. He gets it. He studied business. That made me happy. Probably more than I ever said out loud. I had this quiet little idea in the back of my mind, Not even a plan, just a thought, that maybe one day he'd come work with me. That we'd build something together. I never told him that. I didn't want to pressure him. But I did think it. And I don't know, I keep coming back to that. Whether thinking it was enough for him to feel it. Anyway, he's graduated. Moved back home for about a year. And I loved that year. I really did. I don't even want to pretend I didn't. Having him back in the house. Hearing him come in late. The little noises, the normalcy of it. It felt like something had been restored. We talked more again. Not like when he was a kid, obviously, but there was something there. Familiar. Then he got his own place. About 40 minutes away. Got a job with a property management company, handling finances, bookkeeping, that kind of thing. He was good at it. Really good. Got promoted quickly. And I remember thinking, okay, he's doing it. He's building something for himself. I was proud of him. I don't say that lightly. And then, this is where things start to feel different, even in my memory. He came to me one evening. Just showed up at the house. No warning. Walked in like he used to. He had this energy about him. Not nervous exactly, but focused. Intent. He sat down at the kitchen table. Same table. And he pulled out his laptop. And he said, I want to show you something. I remember that moment so clearly. The way he said it. Like it mattered. He had spreadsheets. Detailed ones. Projections, timelines, cost breakdowns. It was a duplex. Needed work, but, his words, the bones are good. The neighborhood was improving. Property values were trending up. If it was renovated properly, both units could be rented within a year, cash flow within 2. He walked me through everything. Line by line. And I just sat there thinking, this is my kid. Like, look at him. Look at what he put together. The effort, the thought, it wasn't sloppy. It wasn't impulsive. It looked real. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Pride. Not the casual kind. Not the good job kind. The deep kind. The kind that sits in your chest. So when he finished, and he looked at me, really looked at me, and said he needed help getting started, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. I gave him $80,000. Even now, saying that out loud, it sounds reckless. And I know that. I know that. I'm an accountant. I've spent over 20 years telling people exactly what not to do in situations like that. Don't mix family and money without documentation. Protect yourself. Get everything in writing. I've said those words to clients more times than I can count. And then I sat at my own kitchen table and handed my son $80,000. Based on a spreadsheet. And trust. No contract. No formal agreement. Nothing. Because he was my son. And I thought that was enough. I pulled from savings. Retirement. Even opened a line of credit on my house. Something I had never touched before because it scared me. And I gave it to him. I believed in him completely. And for a little while, it actually felt like I was right too. The first few months, they were good. He sent updates. Pictures of the place. Walls being torn down, new flooring, material stacked everywhere. Progress. He'd text me late sometimes, excited about something small. A fixture he found. A deal he negotiated. And we talked. More than we had in years. I remember thinking, this brought us back. Like somehow, this project had fixed something between us. I even told people about it. At work. Friends. I'd say, my son and I are working on a property together. And I meant it. I was proud to say it. But then, the update started to slow down. Not all at once. Just less frequent. A few days between messages turned into a week. Then longer. And I told myself he was busy. Because that made sense, right? He had a full-time job, plus the renovation. Of course things would get hectic. I didn't want to be that parent. The one who calls too much. Who hovers. So I waited. 3 months went by, and I realized something. I hadn't actually seen the property. Not once. And that's when a small, quiet feeling started to form. Not panic. Not even suspicion, exactly. Just something slightly off. Like when a room is too quiet, and you don't know why. And I remember thinking, should I say something? Or am I overreacting? Because at the time it still felt like everything was fine. But looking back now, that was the moment. The very first moment where I could have pushed harder. And I didn't. And I didn't realize it then. But that decision, to stay quiet, to not look too closely. That's where everything really started to slip. So, 3 months had gone by. 3 full months. And I hadn't seen the property. Not once. That should have bothered me more than it did at the time. Or no, that's not right. It did bother me. I handled that feeling in a very specific way. I ignored it. Not completely. It was there. Like a low hum in the background. But every time it came up, I had a reason ready. A very reasonable, logical explanation. He's busy. Renovations take time. You don't want to be overbearing. I kept repeating those things to myself until they sounded like facts. But eventually, I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I asked him if I could come by. Just casually. Nothing confrontational. I made sure my tone was light, almost like it didn't matter either way. And he said no. Not directly. Not harshly. He said it wasn't ready yet. That there were still contractors there, things half done. And he knew I didn't like seeing projects midway through. And the thing is, he was right. I hate that. I hate seeing something incomplete. It makes me anxious. He knew that about me. Always had. So when he said that, it made sense. Too much sense. And I accepted it. Immediately. No pushback. Looking back, I think that's the moment that bothers me the most. Not because of what he said, but because of how easily I let it go. Because part of me, some small part, felt something shift right then. Like wait. But I pushed that feeling down. I told myself he was being thoughtful. Considerate. I even appreciated it. Which, God, that's hard to admit. Another month went by. Now we're at 4 months. And this is where things start to feel different in a way I couldn't quite name at the time. I started asking more questions. Not aggressively. Just checking in. How's the timeline looking? Still on track? Do you need anything? And his answers. They changed. Not drastically. Not in a way that would raise alarms if you weren't paying attention. But they got vague. Things are taking longer than expected. Contractor had a delay. Permits are still being worked out. And that last one, that one stuck with me. Because I knew the permits were done. He had shown me the paperwork. We'd gone over it together. I remember that clearly. So when he said that again, I noticed. But I didn't say anything. I didn't correct him. I didn't ask why. I just let it pass. And I've gone over that moment in my head so many times. More than I can even explain. Because that wasn't confusion. That was a choice. I made a choice not to push. Not to question. And I've had to sit with that, really sit with it, and be honest with myself about why. It wasn't because I trusted him so completely. That's what I told myself back then. But the truth is, I think I didn't want to know. I think some part of me had already started to feel that something wasn't right. And pushing would have forced me to face it. And I wasn't ready for that. So I stayed comfortable. I stayed quiet. And that's a hard thing to admit about yourself. Because it means I wasn't just unaware. I was avoiding. 5 months in. I was driving home from a client meeting. Different part of town. Not even near where I usually go. And I don't know why. I really don't. But I turned onto his street. It wasn't planned. I didn't think about it ahead of time. It just happened. Like my body made the decision before my mind caught up. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll just drive by. That's it. Just the outside. No pressure. No confrontation. Just a quick look. I didn't tell him I was coming. I didn't even consider calling first. And that alone should probably tell you something about where I was at mentally. I needed to see it for myself. So I pulled up. And I sat there. And at first, I thought I had the wrong place. Because it looked exactly the same. Not similar. The same. Same peeling paint. Same overgrown weeds. Same broken front step I remembered from the listing photos he showed me months earlier. There were no signs of renovation. No equipment. No materials. Nothing. Just stillness. And I remember this very specific feeling. Not panic. Not even anger. Just this slow, sinking realization. Like something inside me quietly saying, this isn't right. I stayed in the car for a long time. I don't even know how long. Just staring at it. Trying to make it make sense. Because my brain immediately went into problem-solving mode. Maybe they're working on the inside first. Maybe the exterior comes last. Maybe you're missing something. I actually drove around the block. Twice. Just to make sure I had the right address. I did. I absolutely did. And that's when the feeling changed. It got heavier, harder to explain, because now it wasn't just doubt. It was something closer to knowing. But I still wasn't ready to say that out loud. Not even to myself. So I drove home. And the whole way back, I rehearsed the conversation in my head. Over and over. How to sound calm. Neutral. Not accusatory. Because I didn't want to push him away. That was still my priority. Even then. I called him. He picked up. And I remember. This part is so clear. I made my voice very steady. Very controlled. I told him I had been in the area. That I drove by the property. Just checking in. There was a pause. Not long. Most people probably wouldn't even notice it. But I noticed. And then he said, "Yeah, we've had some setbacks." And something about the way he said it. It didn't sit right. I asked what kind of setbacks. And what he said next. At the time I accepted it. But now it's one of the things I can't stop replaying. Because that was the moment where he gave me a story. And I chose to believe it. And I didn't realize then that I was already standing at the edge of something much worse. He said the contractor had stolen materials. That's what he told me. That they'd had to fire him. Start over. That things got delayed because of it. And he sounded embarrassed. That's the part that got me. He didn't sound defensive. He didn't sound like he was covering something. He sounded like my kid who didn't want to disappoint me. And I believed him. Or no, I need to be more honest than that. I wanted to believe him. There's a difference. And I didn't understand that difference at the time. I said, "Derek, I don't care about setbacks. I just need you to be honest with me." And he said he was. He said he was sorry. And his voice, God, his voice sounded real. It didn't feel rehearsed. It didn't feel like a lie. It felt like him. So I accepted it. I went home. And I didn't sleep that night. Not at all. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. The tone. The pause before he answered. The explanation. Every little piece of it. Trying to convince myself it made sense. Trying to not feel what I was starting to feel. Because something in me, it hadn't settled. It was louder now. That quiet little hum I'd been ignoring. It wasn't quiet anymore. But I still didn't act on it. Not fully. 3 more weeks went by. And during those 3 weeks, I changed. Not outwardly. I still went to work, still had conversations, still functioned like everything was normal. But internally, something shifted. I started watching more closely. Every text he sent. Every delay. Every explanation. I started noticing patterns. And once you start noticing, you can't really stop. So finally, I asked him for a full accounting. Nothing dramatic. Nothing emotional. Just standard. Can you send me a breakdown? Receipts, expenses, what's been spent, what's left. The kind of thing I would ask any client without hesitation. And I remember staring at my phone after I sent that message. Because I knew. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew. Whatever came next, it was going to change something. He didn't respond. 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4 days. 4 days of silence. And that silence, it said more than anything he could have written. By the 4th day, I already had this feeling in my chest. Tight, heavy, like something pressing down. And I kept thinking, if everything is fine, why can't he just send it? It should have been easy. It should have taken an hour, maybe 2. But 4 days went by. And then finally, he sent a document. I opened it immediately. Didn't even sit down. I was standing in the kitchen, still holding my keys in one hand. And I knew. The second I looked at it. I didn't need to go line by line. I didn't need to analyze it deeply. I just knew. Because when you've worked with numbers as long as I have, they tell you things. Even when they're trying not to. And these numbers. They were wrong. Not obviously wrong. That's the part that made it worse. They were subtly wrong. The kind of wrong that suggests someone thought they could get away with it. Small inconsistencies. Totals that didn't quite line up. Categories that felt off. It wasn't messy. It was intentional. And I felt this drop. Like the bottom just fell out. But I still went through it. Line by line. Because part of me was still hoping I was mistaken. That I was overthinking it. That there was an explanation I just hadn't seen yet. But there wasn't. About $40,000. Was just gone. Not tied to renovation costs. Not explained by delays. Gone. Withdrawals. Transfers. to an account I didn't recognize. I remember sitting down finally, just lowering myself into the chair like my body couldn't hold me up anymore. And I kept staring at the screen, hoping something would change if I looked at it long enough. It didn't. I called him. No answer. I called again. And again. Straight to voicemail. And I wasn't even angry yet. That's the strange part. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't panicking. I just needed him to pick up. To say something. Anything. Finally, he texted me. Not a call. A text. He said, "I need some time. I can explain." And I read that message over and over. I can explain. And I thought, okay, then explain. I was ready to listen. I would have listened to anything at that point. I would have sat there and heard him out, no matter what it was. Because I still believed there was a version of this that made sense. There was a version where he didn't mean to hurt me, where something just got out of control, where he needed help. I was ready for that version. I was waiting for that version. But that explanation never came. Not the next day. Not the next week. Not ever. And that's the part one wasn't prepared for. Not just what he did, but that he chose to disappear instead of facing me. And I didn't realize it right then, not fully, but that silence. That was the moment I started losing him. That text, "I need some time. I can explain." That was the last direct thing he ever said to me. And for a while, I held on to it like it meant something, like it was a promise. I kept thinking, okay, he just needs a few days. Maybe a week. He's overwhelmed. He's embarrassed. He's trying to figure out how to say it. I gave him that space. I didn't call again that night. I didn't push the next day. I told myself, be calm. Be steady. Don't make this worse. Because even then, even with $40,000 missing, my first instinct wasn't anger. It was, protect the relationship. That was always my instinct with him. And I don't know if that was love or something else. Maybe both. Days passed. Then weeks. And nothing came. No explanation. No call. No follow-up message. Just silence. And at some point, the waiting started to change shape. At first, it felt temporary. Like something that would resolve if I just gave it enough time. But then it became something heavier. Something more permanent. And I started reaching out again. Carefully. Gently. I'd text him, short messages. Not confrontational. Just openings. Hey, just checking in. I'm here when you're ready to talk. Let me know you're okay. I avoided mentioning the money at first. I avoided the word why. Because I was still trying to make it easy for him to come back. I thought if I removed the pressure, he'd step into it on his own. But he didn't. Sometimes he'd read the messages. I could see that. And that, honestly, that might have been worse than no response at all. Because it meant he saw me. He just chose not to answer. And I kept trying. I didn't do it constantly. I wasn't sending messages every day. But every few weeks, I'd reach out again. Like knocking on a door I wasn't sure anyone was behind anymore. And each time, nothing. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I found out more. Not from him. From other people. Which, there's something deeply humiliating about that. Learning pieces of your own life from conversations you weren't supposed to be part of. His cousin told me first. She said she felt awful even bringing it up. Like she was betraying him. But she didn't think I knew the full picture. And I didn't. She said he'd gotten into some kind of debt. At first, she thought it was just bad spending. Then she heard it might be gambling. Then someone else said it could be people he owed money to, like real pressure, not just financial mistakes. The story, it changed depending on who was telling it. And that made it worse. Because there was no solid ground. No single truth I could hold on to. Just fragments. And I kept trying to piece them together like if I got the full picture it would somehow hurt less. It didn't. All it really confirmed was this. He needed money. And he took it. From me. And not just once. Over time. While still sending me updates. While still letting me believe everything was moving forward. And that's the part one can't. I still can't fully process. It wasn't just the taking. It was the continuing. The texts. The photos. The conversations. He let me be proud of him. He let me tell people at work, my son and I are doing this together. I remember saying that. More than once. And smiling when I said it. And he knew. He knew I was saying that. And he didn't stop me. That's the piece that's still. I don't even have a clean word for it. It's not just anger. It's something sharper than that. Because pride, for me, isn't something I give easily. And he knew that. So I started asking myself questions. The kind that don't have clean answers. Did I push him into this? Not the stealing. Not the lying. But the beginning of it. The pressure. Because even if I didn't say it out loud, I had expectations. I had that quiet dream of us building something together. Of him stepping into my world. Did he feel that? Did he feel like he had to succeed? Because I needed him to? Because I didn't have his father anymore? Because he was what I had left? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I've gone back and forth on it so many times I don't even trust my own conclusions anymore. My sister says I'm making excuses for him. That I do this thing. This pattern. Where I absorb blame that isn't mine. And she might be right. But I also think it's not that simple. I think it's possible that he did something very real, very wrong. And that I still played some role in the environment that made it possible. Those things can exist at the same time. And trying to hold both of them, that's exhausting. Because some days, I'm furious. Like, physically furious. My chest gets tight, my hands shake. I replay everything and I think, how could he do that to me? Not just the money, but the lying. The way he looked at me and let me believe in him. That part feels like something deeper than betrayal. But then, other days, I'm just sad. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Just this quiet, heavy sadness. I'll be sitting in the kitchen, and I'll think about him as a kid. That hand on the homework paper. And it hits me all over again. I miss him. I miss him in a way that doesn't go away. And I didn't realize it at first. But somewhere between the anger and the sadness, something else started to settle in. Something I wasn't prepared for at all. Because losing the money, that wasn't the worst part. It was losing the version of him I thought I knew. And once that started to sink in, that's when everything felt different. Because once that image broke, it didn't just crack a little. It didn't bend or shift. It was gone. And I don't think I understood how much of my relationship with him was built on that image until it disappeared. The kid at the kitchen table. The teenager who still came and talked to me. The young man with spreadsheets and plans and this future that made sense. That version of him, it felt real. Solid. And then suddenly, I didn't know who he was anymore. And that's a very strange kind of loss. Because he's still out there. Living his life. Making choices. Waking up every day somewhere. And I have no idea what any of that looks like. I haven't reached out in about 8 months. Before that, I tried. I really did. The last message I sent was simple. I thought about it for a long time before I wrote it. Rewrote it 3 or 4 times. Deleted parts. Added things back. Trying to get the tone right. Not too emotional. Not too cold. Just open. I said I wasn't angry. Which wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. It depended on the day. I said I missed him. That part was completely true. And I said the door was open. I stared at that message for a while before sending it. Like once I sent it, I couldn't take it back. I couldn't adjust it. It would just exist there waiting. I sent it. And then I waited. He read it. I saw the read receipt. And for a second, just a second, I felt this small lift. Like maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment he would respond. Maybe he just needed to see that I wasn't going to attack him. That he could come back without everything exploding. I waited. Minutes. Hours. The rest of the day. Nothing. No reply. And I remember sitting there looking at my phone and thinking, okay. Just okay. Not in a calm way. More like a quiet kind of acceptance. Like something in me stopped expecting. And I don't know if that's healthy. I really don't. Because there's this kind of grief I didn't even know existed until this. Losing someone who is still alive. It's different from death. With death, there's finality. As painful as it is, there's a kind of stillness that comes with it eventually. This is open. There's always a possibility. And that possibility, it doesn't comfort you. It weighs on you. Because every day that passes without contact becomes its own kind of answer. And still, the door is open. That's the part one can't seem to change. This is going to sound. I don't know how it sounds, but I set money aside. In a separate account. I don't touch it. I don't really have a clear plan for it. Part of me says it's practical. Just being prepared. But if I'm honest, it's for him. In case he comes back. In case he needs help again. And I hear myself saying that and I think, what are you doing? After everything? After what he did? You're still preparing to give? And maybe that makes me a fool. I've thought that. More than once. Maybe it means I haven't learned the lesson I'm supposed to learn here. Maybe it means I haven't built the boundaries I should have. My therapist would probably say something like that. But I also think there are some people you just don't stop loving. No matter what they do, no matter how much they hurt you, they just stay. And he is that person for me. If he called me right now, I would pick up. I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't let it ring. And I don't think I'd start with anger. I think I just need to hear his voice. To know he's okay. And maybe that says something about me that I don't fully understand yet. But it's true. I'm not sharing this because I want sympathy. I really mean that. If anything, I hesitated to say any of this because I know how it sounds. I know people will have opinions. They'll say I should have done things differently. That I should have protected myself better. That I should have taken legal action. And I thought about that. I did. I even talked to a lawyer friend. She walked me through it. Civil suit, informal agreement, reasonable case. I sat with that for weeks. And in the end, I couldn't do it. I couldn't take my son to court over money. Even after everything. I don't know if that was weakness. Or just being a mother. Maybe it's both. The money, I've mostly recovered financially. That part, practically speaking, worked itself out over time. That's not the real loss. The real loss is not knowing who he is anymore. Not knowing if the version of him I loved ever really existed the way I thought it did. Or if I just filled in the gaps with what I wanted to see. And I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to ask him that. I don't know if he'll ever come back and sit across from me again and explain. And that's the part that stays open. That never quite settles. I don't have a clean ending for this. I wish I did. I wish I could say there's closure or a lesson, or something tied up neatly. There isn't. I'm still in it. Still figuring out how to live with a question that might never get answered. Still figuring out what it means to love someone who isn't there anymore, but is still somewhere. And I think the hardest part isn't what he took. It's what he left behind. Because I'm still here. Still sitting at that same kitchen table sometimes. Thinking about a boy with his hand pressed flat against a piece of paper. And wondering if I'll ever hear from him again. And the truth is, I don't know if I'm more afraid that he won't, or that one day, he will.